herring makes me nervous, which is funny because fish is my thing and Slavic cooking is my thing. And when herring is good, it's totally my thing. I mean, it's fatty and salty with that silky raw fish texture. But oh, the bones! So many bones! And there is also the problem of freshness. There is nothing more disappointing than struggling to debone a herring only to find it too fishy and past its prime. Since our next video is going to be shuba, or herring in a fur coat, I finally decided to learn how to buy herring in the United States. In this video, we'll compare different brands, learn how to fillet and debone a herring, and how to buy it already boneless. What you need to understand about herring is that there are many different styles of preserving it. The two major styles that I've encountered are salted herring and pickled herring. The herring that I love and that we need for shuba is salted herring. It's preserved in a salty brine. It is not acidic and not sweet at all. It also retains its raw fish texture, kind of like gravlax or cold smoked salmon. Basically, it tastes like sushi, but salty. What you'll typically find in American stores is pickled herring. It's not just salty, but also acidic and sweet, and acidity firms up its texture. By the way, on my recent trip to Denmark, I was super excited about herring, but it turned out to be pickled herring, not salted herring. I hear that for the herring that I love, I need to go to the Netherlands. Well, next time. The good news is that finding a salted herring in most American cities is pretty easy. Just go to any Eastern European store and they'll have herring. For my fellow Bostonians, I'll list some stores in the description below the video. The problem is that they'll have a gazillion options and I never know what to buy. Here is what happened in the past. Either I was feeling ambitious and bought the whole herring they sell in brine. Then I'd struggle with deboning, only to find the herring a bit past its prime. In other words, mushy and fishy. Or I would throw in the towel and just buy a package of fillets in oil. How do they debone them so perfectly? I don't know, but from the bones perspective, it's a great solution. The problem is that many of these packages have off flavors. Some of it is due to the spices that they add, and some of it is due to the oil used for packing. Finally, I decided that I need to settle this issue once and for all with a taste test. I asked the deli guy to show me all the options that would be least flavored and bought them all to compare. Here are the choices he gave me. Whole herring that he pulled out of a bucket with the brine. Whole herring that was sold vacuum sealed from a company called Haifa. Filleted and deboned herring in oil from a company called Matthias. I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly, but that's my best guess. The ingredients on the whole vacuum sealed herring were just herring and salt. The ingredients on filleted herring were herring, vegetable oil, which they said could be either sunflower or canola, salt, and a bunch of preservatives. Not perfect. I really wish they would make up their mind on the oil at least, since canola oil smells fishy to me, but I am not sure how much of a difference it makes in the context of herring, since the herring is fishy too. I filleted the two that came whole, dried off the one that came in oil, and tasted them all. Here are my thoughts. The tastiest herring was the one that was vacuum sealed whole from Haifa. The flavor was nice and clean, just fish and salt, and the texture was tender but not mushy. If you're serving the herring simply with a little onion and lemon, this is the way to go. The whole herring that came without packaging was a tad more fishy and mushy. Not terrible, but definitely not worth all the deboning trouble. From what I've seen, very few people choose to buy whole herring these days, and without vacuum sealing, I think they are spoiling faster than they can sell them. The Matthias fillets packed in oil felt more preserved and almost slightly pickled, probably because of citric acid and other preservatives they put in it. If consumed by itself, with minimal accompaniments, it would leave me a bit disappointed. But in a dish like shuba, it worked completely fine. I actually made shuba with all 3 herrings, and the difference was barely noticeable. Given how incredibly easy Matthias herring was to use, I would go with that. Just be careful that you get the original kind, in other words, plain. This one was sold as Norwegian style, whatever that means. Matthias makes many different flavored herrings and I've never liked them, but this plain kind was definitely edible. If you watch my video on how to buy fresh fish, you'll hear me saying that good fish should not smell fishy at all. It can smell like nothing or like the sea. Of course, smells are very individual. What some people describe as the sea smell, others describe as the fishy smell. Herring is a bit different, just like salt cod. These preserved products will have a slight fishy smell. If you are not a fish lover to begin with, herring is not for you. This video is for people who love herring and know what good herring should smell and taste like. Although salted herring does smell slightly fishy, it should be appetizing and not disgusting. If the flesh is disintegrating into a mush, that's not a good sign. Herring should have a soft and silky flesh, but it shouldn't feel like mashed potatoes. Salted herring is obviously salty, but it can be balanced with a splash of lemon juice. If you feel that it's still too salty after you added acidity, you could soak it in water for a couple of hours and dry it off, but I find that soaking dilutes the flavor, so I prefer not to do that. In the US, herring is sold without guts, so that step is already done for me. The knife I'm using for filleting is a boning knife. I start by cutting off the head, then I trace the back of the herring from the tail to the head going above the fin, that's right in the middle of the back. Then flip the herring over and do the same thing. Basically, you are cutting out the fin and separating the back into 2 fillets. Cut through the skin at the tail and on the belly side. This will make it possible for us to pull the skin right off. Start at the tail end and slowly and gently pull it toward the head. Around the belly, you might get a little ripping, so you might need to change the direction of pulling slightly and go from the back of the fish towards the belly. Then flip the fish and pull off the skin on the other side. I've seen a lot of videos where you pull the herring apart by the tail and all the bones come out. I've tried it on 2 herrings with no luck. If you know what I'm doing wrong, let me know. I'm just going to cut the top fillet off the backbone. Halfway through, I feel it's easier to forget the knife and proceed with your hands. This way you can pull the fillet off the bones without cutting through them. I feel like I remove more bones this way. Then I get my fingers under the backbone and pull it out of the second fillet. There we go. The belly is covered with this dark film and we need to scrape it off and cut off any remaining bones. Looks like a nice fillet, but don't get too excited. It's loaded with bones. I'll show you several ways to get it completely deboned. Right down the middle is a row of bones we can cut out, dividing our fillet into the thin belly area and thick back area. See, here is that row. If this was a trout or salmon, would be done, but herring also has a ton of bones in the back area. You could take tweezers and pull them out. My problem is that not all of them are accessible from the surface of the fillet. I thought I got them all out, but once I started to cut my fillet crosswise, look what I found, more bones. So I had to go through every piece and pull them out. This gave me an idea that I'll show you on my next herring. Here it is. Once I had 2 fillets, I didn't bother pulling out any small bones until I cut it crosswise. If I have to go through every piece anyway, I might as well save all the tweezer work for that stage. For the tail pieces, I just ripped off the boneless white flesh and discarded the center dark area where all the bones are concentrated. When I got to the bigger pieces, I switched to tweezers and pulled out all the little bones from both sides now that I had a better access to the bones. This gave me another idea. What if I didn't cut through these bones? This does require a very light touch, but gives me even more access to these pesky little bones. I'm gliding the knife through the flesh gently enough that I can stop when I hit the bones. Herring flesh is soft enough that at this point, this piece can be pulled off with your hands. By not cutting through the bones, I leave myself a little handle. Now I can grab all these bones even without tweezers and yank them out. Let me do that again so that you can see how it works. Glide the knife gently. If you left some flesh from the previous piece, you can pull it off the bones and save. Pull the piece you just cut off the fillet. Then pull the bones out. Phew! We survived this deboning ordeal, and I'll see you next week with the herring in a fur coat. Here are more very detailed culinary tutorials for you to check out, and if you are ever in the Boston area, maybe I'll see you in one of my classes.